right, hello, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Omni Talk Fast 5. It is May 21st. Holy cow, heading into Memorial Day weekend. And I'm joined, as always, by my partners in arms, Ann Mazinga. Ann, how's it going today?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Is it? You have your Mr. Rogers shoes on, your sweater? What's going on? Looks like you're wearing flannel.
I wish. No, it's Memorial Day weekend. I got my Memorial Day weekend gear on right now.
So nothing says like Memorial Day weekend like a J. Crew flannel or
like red, white, and blue plaid. Come on.
Oh, all right, awesome.
All right.
I gotta check you out. Get it, Carter? How you doing today?
You're wearing a blue sweatshirt today, Chris. Really switching things up.
Oh, it's a T-shirt. I'm T-shirting it today.
A t-shirt?
Yeah, I know.
That's crazy.
Well, it's summer. Got to get in the summer swing. What about you, Emma? How are things there?
They're good. Not much has changed.
But not much has changed. You virtually graduated last week. We saw the announcement on social media. You had cap and gown, full diploma.
You're a graduate.
Picture.
You have your undergrad from a very prestigious school now.
Hey, and I'm going to get my graduate degree from there too because I got into the U for grad school.
Woo,
so.
Yeah!
Nice work, Emma.
Grad school. What's the program?
It is apparel studies with a focus on retail and consumer studies.
Awesome. Congratulations. How was the pasta dinner what was it again that you were really, really geeked up about? Cannolis?
Cheese tortellini.
Tortellinis.
Cheese
okay.
tortellini.
Cheese tortellini.
It was very good.
In a red sauce, right? That's
very
what
good.
It was, right? It was fabulous. It was good. It was good.
Yeah,
good.
Worth it.
Carter, we lost you there for a little bit, so I switched over to Emma. But what's the news? What's the haps? What's going on?
Yeah, sorry. What's going on? You know, I'm 4 doors down from Ann, and I can feel the Memorial Day excitement coming from her home, which is awesome. We're just gonna enjoy the next couple of days with our immediate close little family here. Continue on the quarantine fun, and yeah, it should be a good time. So hopefully it's beautiful here in the great state of Minnesota.
Yep, awesome. Well, we both got our backwards baseball hats on. We're ready to roll. Ann's got a red, white, and blue nostalgia ready to rock. And Emma is our newest graduate. So, and for those watching us on YouTube or on social media, you also notice that we have a couple friends involved in our podcast today. And that is, of course,
against their will.
They don't know that, but they're here.
Let's be clear.
Yeah, and that is Jeff and Terry. So you might, if you're just listening to the podcast, you might want to switch over to the YouTube channel and check that out because this one is an all-time Zoom background. But all right, you guys ready to go? I've got some exciting news to share with you, and that is on the sponsorship front. So we are pleased as punch this week to announce that Takeoff is now a sponsor of the Omni Talk Fast 5. Takeoff is transforming grocery by empowering grocers to thrive online. The key is micro-fulfillment, small robotic fulfillment centers that can be leveraged at a hyper-local scale. Takeoff also offers a robust software suite so grocers can seamlessly integrate the robotic solution into their existing businesses. To learn more, visit takeoff.com. We've long been a fan of theirs, and we've seen their facility down in Florida multiple times. We could not be more excited to have them in the fold. We think this is one of the technologies, as we've gone on record saying, that's going to be one of the most important as the future of retail plays out. And of course, last but not least is Trigo. Trigo is developing the most advanced AI and computer vision-based checkout-free system for the grocery industry. Using standard cameras and proprietary algorithms, Trigo converts real-size stores, introducing a frictionless shopping experience. Together with Tesco, Trigo is currently piloting the world's largest checkout-free store. You can also learn more about Trigo by visiting www.trigo.tech. All right. I am pumped. I got feedback last week from a loyal follower that she loved how hyped on caffeine that I seemed. So we're going to roll with that again. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ann, you have the honors this week.
I do have the honors of the first story. And just a reminder, if you're following us live on LinkedIn, to put something in the comments. You have something to interject at any point in time, you let us know about it. But until then, we'll get started with story number 1. So, some of our favorite dining booking platforms are expanding beyond restaurants. So there's a couple that we're probably all likely familiar with, Resy, Open Table, and a rather new one called Talk. And these restaurant booking platforms are evolving into other industries. So Talk is one of them. I posted about this week because one of our members at Third House turned me on to them, because he's exploring using Talk for booking appointments for the automobile industry. So service appointments, appointments to go test drive cars, which a lot of these other platforms, Resi and OpenTable, are also experiencing. So OpenTable specifically announced one that's for a groceries solution that they're offering free of charge to help control crowds in the grocery stores. And Resi is also rolling out several front and back end tools, again, to monitor capacity. But the biggest thing here, I think, to pay attention to as far as retailers are concerned is, as malls are opening back up, these dining apps could prove as useful tools to help monitor traffic, help facilitate things like curbside pickup, and is already a platform that so many of us are very accustomed to using. And so we'll see what happens once these dining apps start getting rolled out. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, Carter, why don't we go? You're Mr. like curbside pickup du jour of the whatever the phrase is over this COVID period of time. Whereas I, don't leave my house out of fear of many things, but not all of which are COVID related. But like, what do you think on this whole thing?
They're going to have to do something, right? I mean, when you looked at what the last couple of months were for some of these platforms, it went from, crushing a lot of really successful business and continuing to grow to almost zero. And to make a pivot like this is, I think, just it had to happen. Like, what else are you going to do? I'll be curious how this continues to evolve, I think, over time, but time will only tell. So I'm excited to try it out. I think I was not really a huge user of any of this type of stuff in the last 6 months, year. I used them a couple of years ago, some of these platforms, but I think all of a sudden they kind of have a new value when you try to figure out what this new normal looks like. And I'm excited to try some of these out.
Yeah, the thing I'm really big on right now in the last week, I think it was spurred on by our podcast last week too. Huge on this concierge shopping thing.
Totally.
Like, like this, like merging of, like, say I walk into a restaurant, there's the hostess that greets me. Like, what is and then in theory you could like expand that to like, take me around, do all the things I need to do, facilitate, how I hold my bags as I shop a mall, facilitate getting the product to my house, all that kind of stuff. How those two worlds collide and come together, you can see it in the auto industry and the example you shared. But like, what is that next for retail, given what's going on here? This whole concierge idea, inspired by Sam's Club. I pull up and there's somebody there that just helps me do whatever I need to do. Like, I think malls could easily start to experiment with that, with this type of technology. Retailers could too. It's just really interesting to think about.
It's also interesting as you see like the capacity limits being really part of the restaurant rollout plans for so many different states. So restaurants are going to start being able to open with really strict capacity limits. And I'll be curious how the technological or the tools that are already in place within like the hostess stands and online to make these appointments are now going to be the way that these restaurants are doing business. And I think, it's going to become the lifeblood of whether they can open or not and whether they can open safely or not. And I think it's a race to who can do it and who can do it best and who can, who already has infrastructure in place that doesn't involve a lot of onboarding for these restaurants. So it'll be fascinating to see really who wins.
And for one of our listeners, Cindy, that name of the first one we mentioned is called Talk, T-O-C-K. And so I think, yeah, you guys are dead on. I think we've seen a lot of news, I guess, at least this week, or commentary too, around what the expectation is going to be of consumers coming back to stores now that they've developed these habits of picking things up curbside, being able to go in, and especially with platforms like Resi, where now you just put your name in at a restaurant and they know everything about you. They know your phone number. They can text you automatically. Like the lift from the customer side is so minimal right now and provides so much benefit that I think this is going to be a huge tool.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, because like the other thing about this is like when you talk about that merging of the two concepts, this is low capital. Like you're talking software and a human. Like that's really what's involved here. And so like you could start this and stand this up pretty easily. There's not a lot of excuses. The only hard parts maybe is on the integration on the technical side, but you can decide how much of that you want to bite off and chew. There's a lot, Carter, to the way you always say, there's a lot of low tech ways to bring this idea together, especially in the short term. All right, this next story is huge. So we gave it to our biggest graduate. Stick around too. We've got more exciting stories. Like we've got our huge debate coming up on the rumor of JCPenney's and Amazon. You're going to stick around for the end on that one because Ann and I completely disagree on it. But first, this
Let
story.
them decide.
Yeah. And please chime in if you're listening, ask us questions. But this next story is probably the biggest story of the week. So, Emma, University of Minnesota graduate, would you please tell the audience?
I think
I thought I was story number 3.
And I probably screwed it up. All right, so
it's
Carter.
Okay. Here, that's the thing is, it's like I know
you
Emma's
also are a University of Minnesota graduate. The beauty of going live, folks.
No, Emma, I think probably would have read this best. But as you guys know, social commerce is totally up my alley. I would not let this one slide. I demanded that this story had my name next to it because here's the deal.
In fact, they even texted you that this was your story, didn't they? Yeah. Shows you how the sausage is made here at Omnicom.
This last Tuesday, Mark Zuckerberg got in front of online investors and onlookers and announced a heap of new tools that they were announcing. And the biggest one was their announcement of what they're calling Facebook Shops. Now, my favorite quote in the press release was this: "The joy of shopping versus the chore of buying." And that's what Facebook is looking to do. So Zuckerberg announced a handful of updates on Tuesday, signaling the company's commitment to online shopping and commerce, one of the areas that's continued to be a priority for them across all of their own platforms. So Facebook Shops was the key announcement, and the company is pitching it as a way for businesses to create an online store that will span across all of Facebook's own properties. So starting just with Facebook and Instagram, but they're already making announcements of how it's going to push into Messenger, WhatsApp, etc., giving shops and small businesses access to Facebook's 3 billion users. It's incredible. So users can find shops directly from a retailer's page, so on their Facebook fan page or their Instagram page, or they can click on an ad and they will be directed instantly to an online shopping experience. And this is where the kicker is, within the Facebook environment. And that's the biggest difference with this whole thing. So beforehand, Facebook had a bunch of tools for small business. You could do ads, you could do gallery ads, you could do Facebook pages, you could do Instagram profiles, all geared towards your business. But anytime that you actually wanted to purchase something, often you're kicked out into, like, say, a Shopify site or another retailer owned platform. Now with this new announcement, Facebook is actually building the commerce platform within its walls. And so users will never have to leave, which then brings on a whole new heap of opportunity. For example, later this year, they announced that the Discover tab is actually going to be replaced on Instagram with a Shop tab, which goes back to our whole conversation about the new Shopify app of imagine being able to get perfect product recommendations from Instagram, from Facebook on everything that you didn't even know you needed. And who knows us better than Facebook and Instagram to make those recommendations spot on. And I'm so excited to see that. So just some stats, and I'm so curious what you guys think. So Facebook's stock was up nearly 6% when they made this announcement, and it's up over almost 30% this month alone. And so investors, everyone is loving this, and it's just fascinating to see how this will continue to roll out. So it's available to a small number of retailers, and it will continue to roll out. And they're going to make money 2 ways. One, they secretly said kind of deep down that they may potentially put a percentage on every purchase, but at the same time, this is a huge boost to ad dollars. People are going to want to advertise on Facebook. They're going to want to advertise on Instagram. They're going to want to put their products there because 3 billion users are there. And what better place to meet them than on Facebook, where they spend hours and hours and hours every single day.
All right. Well said, my friend. Well said. And well done by the person who was supposed to do the story too. So that was great. That was great. No, I mean, this is massive. This is huge. I mean, we've been pontificating on this for a really long time. It's really interesting to see how it's going to play out. Like Carter, right? It works with I can't remember if you said that, but like it works with Shopify, so you can easily integrate that in.
You can import your products, from Shopify and a few other commerce partners like WooCommerce, etc. So you're able to import your product archive from that. So yeah, ideally as seamless as possible to transition over.
Yeah, so this thing's like tailor-made for how, like, it's just tailor-made for these guys to stand up shops in this thing. And you're right, 3 billion people, like, it gives you a ton of access. And it just puts, I think the part that's cool to me too is like it puts shopping forward inside like the Facebook application in a different way than probably, people have been historically used to, and probably one that could be pretty beneficial, which again shows you like what physical stores do, or the traditional ways we have thought about retail are changing so dramatically right now. They were changing already, but so dramatically right now that we don't need them for the same types of things that we did. I just wrote an article about this morning. Like, I don't need to go to a store to be inspired. My Facebook feed inspires me every single day. Look at how heated it gets people about politics. And I see you shaking your head. What's going through your head?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You look at the things that they've rolled out just for restaurants to be able to order, like when in their Instagram stories, that just since COVID started, being able to order directly from the restaurant in that image, that was a huge thing to support the restaurant industry right now. So I think it's going to increase more and more, and I think that we'll start to see other forms of shopping kind of take from this too. Like I was talking to a visual search company this week just about how even websites themselves are starting to transform. So it's more images first, like really focusing on either importing images from Instagram, from Pinterest, that they're being inspired by, products they're being inspired by, and then that kind of changing over to the way that we're actually shopping those products. Facebook being able to integrate and facilitate those with partners like Shopify. And then I think the next step is what happens with peer-to-peer commerce. And once you start seeing what Shopify's up to in the next story too, that will really like just, I don't know, it's just going to explode shopping as we know it in the next even year, I would say.
Yeah, let's go there next, because I think you're right. You're hitting on something that's really important. It's like this becomes a platform for so many different things, not just shops, but like all the jobs that we have to potentially get done, and how retail plays into that, especially with some of the things Shopify is now doing and launching concurrently to this. And again, it integrates with all this. Like you can really start to see how this world's going to be really different. And it's, as much as we like to think that innovation is really far out, this stuff's actually happening pretty darn quickly. So Emma, why don't you do, as was planned, story number 3?
All right. So Shopify has announced the new merchant debit card and support for payment installment plans. Shopify Balance is a merchant account with no fees and no minimum balances. The only funds in the account will come from Shopify payments. Merchants won't be able to deposit additional money, but they will be able to log in, track cash flow, and pay bills. And the account comes with a debit card, virtual or physical. And then Shopify said it will also offer cashback rewards and discounts on expenses like shipping and marketing. Then they've also announced their own buy now, pay later feature. And then what I love about this is that this just eliminates the need to transfer your money between all of your bank accounts, especially as someone who has experience, selling on different platforms. The whole act of needing to transfer your money, wait a few days for it to show up is just tedious and kind of excessive. And then I also really like you can keep your business finances really separate from your personal finances. I think that that's something that'll really help small business owners. And then my last point is that, so much of fintech has been so cultivated to benefit the shopper, whereas this is really kind of targeted to help the merchants, especially small business owners.
Yeah, it's funny. When we saw this story and you sent it our way, Emma, Anna and I saw it, and we were like, okay, what do we include this week? We had this debate. At first, we were like, we're not going to put this in. And then Anna and I started talking about this, and we were like, holy crap. As we probably spent 15 to 20 minutes just talking about this story. And we're like, there are so many angles here that we had not even anticipated. And we've got to talk about this because this is important. And so, Anne, why don't you share what were some of those things that we were talking about? And that's what Emma just said.
Well, this is the part where I early in the show, I'm putting my tinfoil hat on. And I'm like, banks as we know it are gone. We're done. It's all peer-to-peer commerce. Nobody's going to have their money in banks anymore. But there are a lot of, if you're future state thinking, there are a lot of reasons why this is going to dramatically change how me as an individual trying to start a store can go about doing that. I mean, Chris, to your point yesterday, once this is set up, the only thing stopping me from opening a physical retail store is finding the inventory and finding that capital to get that business up and running. But this new platform that Shopify has introduced is cutting out all of the red tape to get in and open. All of their online forms have been condensed. All of the marketing, everything that's happening within this platform is just allowing anybody to get up and open. And they have over 1 million retailers already on the platform. 1 million retailers on the platform. You start to look at the integrations that we talked about earlier with Facebook, and then when that extends into WhatsApp and other Instagram, other applications. All of this commerce is going to be happening all in this one space that, there's really no need for people to go outside of these applications to buy anything anymore. So what does this mean for the future of business, for the future of startup businesses? There's so much to talk about. I mean, this platform is really doing, all that Emma said for the startup part of it too. But then we also get into some of the other offerings that this provides the merchants, which is doing the payments on a broken down, I can't think of the term, I just totally lost it, but the
installment financing.
Installment financing, right?
Or installment payments, not necessarily even financing, but
installment payments. Yeah, I think. And then the last piece is just, there is another middleman. So the banks aren't completely going away. Somebody is putting together the foundations to allow for Shopify to pay merchants immediately and to make this installment financing possible. But that won't be announced until the platform is officially online. So,
yeah, Carter, what do you think about this? You've always been like a Shopify, what's the word? File? Not a phobe, but you've been a Shopify guy.
I'm a big fan of Shopify. I think it's awesome. And I think, here's the deal is
you're a Shopify fan?
That's a new word. You can coin that.
I'm coining that. Trademark.
That, I think. Yeah. There you go.
Sure. No one's ever said that.
I'm going to speak to it more broadly here. Every single week we see Shopify announcing something new that supports the merchants on their platform. And it's amazing. I mean, to tie it back to the Facebook commerce, at first I was like, oh man, like Shopify must be hurting here. Like all of a sudden everyone's just going to build their commerce site on Facebook. It's just a lot easier. But then you realize what they've done over the last year in terms of, the shipping discounts and like, there's so much behind the scene work that they've been investing into that really the customer facing platform is only part of what they offer. And I think this is just one more announcement to continue to justify why, as a small business, Shopify should be your first stop.
Yeah. And I mean, and we run a small business, and then I run a small business, and like this part of it, like setting up your bank account, like the fees that are associated with this, there's no fees with any of this too. So like, and how you get everything linked together and like Emma said, you're an entrepreneur. How's it all linked together? How do you get it in and out of one account to the other? This is huge. Like, you just start depositing in whatever starts coming in based on what you're selling. You're able to earn credits similar to like frequent flyer miles by holding the deposits. Shopify essentially is getting the deposits, which is freaking brilliant. And you're just getting all those tools. And so like, you could see how this is going to morph over time into, like, digitally speaking, again, what are all the things people need? What are the jobs they need to get done? And how can we just make it easier for them to stand up commerce? So it's, in a lot of ways, it's really cool because it gives all of us a much easier access to starting new businesses, which I think helps things to flourish. And it continues to show there's this convergence really now of, Galloway talks about the big four. I might start coining this my big three in retail, where you've got the Facebook, the Shopify, and the Amazon vying literally for what is that eventual commerce platform in retail by which everyone can operate. And that's the point, if you stick around for story number 5 with JCP and Amazon, that I really, really want to come back to. All right, well, let's hit the next story. The next story, if you didn't notice, a lot of people had earnings announcements this week, and specifically Target and Walmart both had some pretty important announcements on that front. So at both Walmart and Target, we saw sales jump pretty high in the past quarter. It was interesting that, coincidentally enough, both companies ran 10% comps in the first quarter. My hunch, or my take on that, is actually that there's something going on in terms of them just being pretty well positioned in terms of the one-stop shop game, and also just being a trusted place for communities to go to when, quote unquote, the S hits the fan. Now, most of the growth came from e-commerce. Walmart's sales grew 74%. Walmart's digital sales grew 74% in the first quarter. Now, most of that, of course, was heavily influenced by transactions in later March and April. And then Target as well saw their online comparable sales jump 141%. Now, the important point here, though, is that none of this came without a cost. Margins were definitely hurt at both companies, and both companies essentially singled out the same issues. For the most part, you had issues of category mix. You had a lack of sales in apparel. Category mix meaning selling more groceries and essential categories, which are typically lower margin. Also not selling any apparel. And then, of course, online fulfillment itself is just more expensive. The other portion of this announcement that I would point out that I think is pretty important is around Target. Target specifically in their announcement talked about Deliv, and here's what they said. With the acquisition of Deliv, those are my words, we can, quote, begin testing the addition of sort centers downstream of our stores within our fulfillment network. These centers, which we expect to be smaller than our average store, will be placed downstream in select markets in which we have a high density of packages being sent to guests' homes, end quote. All right, I just said a lot. I said a lot there intentionally. And what are your thoughts on the state of the industry, given what Walmart and Target just reported?
Well, I guess the question here is that's first quarter, but what happens and what's the trickle down from the huge surge in e-commerce that both of these major big box stores have seen? And I think your point's a really good one. The last mile part of this and the curbside fulfillment. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have been into a Target or Walmart store and seen how many people are working on fulfilling these orders. I mean, our local Target is, 25 people packed into a room pulling and trying to, get all these orders put together. Like, just the human power alone to facilitate these orders. It's working, I think, right now because there's not as many people coming through the stores, going through, and the floor pad in the store probably doesn't have to be replenished as frequently because all the orders are being pulled from back of house or from these particular areas. But what happens next quarter, and what do the earnings look like when people start to go back out and shop again, and those resources can't be deployed only in stores to fulfilling these orders, I guess, is what I'm looking at when I see those numbers right now.
Yeah, and it's an interesting question too, because as we reopen, right, if it continues, like the apparel will shift the mix a little bit because apparel will come back to some degree. But you're right, the habit change of e-commerce, is probably going to stick with us and have this deleterious impact. There's a point I want to make on that too, but Carter, what do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great themes that we have talked about over the last 2 months in this whole thing, and great probably isn't the right word, and I think you bring up a really good point. As the dust settles here a little bit, and as we get into a new normal, whatever the next 18 months looks like, the demand for curbside and the demand for e-commerce isn't going to subside back to what it was 6 months ago. I think you're going to still see a huge demand in that, and it brings a list of operational questions and a list of operational opportunities, I think, too. And remember, the Amazon dark stores and Amazon is making some moves to figure out what does that last mile look like? And I think you'll probably see the same thing with Target and Walmart as well, is from an operations standpoint, when people come back into the store, what does the pick and pack system look like? And is it the same as what we've been able to quickly get together in the last month or two, or are there permanent differences or permanent changes that are going to take effect within these companies? I think the net is they got to figure out how to get the cost down and continue to maintain the experience level that they've been able to deliver on while making some money off the top as well.
Yeah, I think that's the point. I mean, I think, we write about this stuff all the time. We talk about this. If I was to hit both companies, over the head with a sledgehammer on the fact that, yeah, this is great, but in reality, it's great because you're sitting there sort of as the beneficiary of just the current situation, right? You and what the business model has been for the past 20 to 30 years, which you are a center for these communities. You're still open because you also happen to sell food. For Walmart, that's a really important aspect of what you do. So by default, online grocery is going to pick up, curbside pickup is going to pick up. Now, you guys were on those trends. But the thing you haven't been on is what you guys are talking about, Anna Carter, which is like, how do you solve the last mile problem? And using, humans to go in and do the picking and the packing off the shelf, whether it's third party with Ship. I've been trying to figure out what % of Ship's volume is Target. I haven't been able to figure that out yet. I think that's an important data point in this whole discussion. That stuff's expensive. And where those guys have not been, Target or Walmart more so than Target, but Target especially, have not been on the cutting edge, is doing what we talked about at the beginning of the show, hyper-local fulfillment experimentation. How are you putting that? That's why I singled it out in the earnings statement. They're thinking about something with this, downstream kind of concept, which is different, but it's still hyper-local and, bringing about the same principles of micro-fulfillment to some degree. And that's where you've got to go, and you've got to go there fast, and you've got to go there quick. And Target has stalled their remodel program, so I'm curious if they were smart. I think they'd be adding that to some degree, at least from a piloting perspective, into it whenever they start to light it up again. All right. We've been waiting for it. And let's start the debate. Let's all get in here on this one, especially if you're online, if you got a question, you got some thoughts, if you're watching us on LinkedIn, Hit us up. But let's start. JCPenney's. Amazon.
We know people on LinkedIn have some very strong opinions. If
very strong,
it was
especially
any
if your name is
indication.
Shlomo.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so story number 5. According to Women's Wear Daily, an Amazon team was in Plano this week, fueling rumors that it is in talks with JCPenney, who has declared bankruptcy and is set to close 242 of its 800 plus stores. So, of course, all of this is still speculation. Shlomo, I'll make sure to point that out for you. But if this were to be the case, Amazon is said to be a contender for either all parts of JCPenney's. And of course, everybody's speculating, is this part of an Amazon fashion play? Is it turning all of the JCPenney's stores into distribution centers? JCPenney has about 30 freestanding locations with a lot of land that could be converted. So also a real estate play. And while the sale of JCPenney's is not certain, a deal would not be expensive given the chain's bankrupt state and depressed stock price. Chris, I think people know how I feel. I would like to hear what your argument is.
Well, I don't know, because I want to hear the pro con here. Because the other thing that's fascinating me about this argument that I think it's important to bring up in context, and I think it's good, and I think actually it's an interesting duality. You got the dukes up, the fingers are pointed. The other thing people are arguing is like, maybe it's true, but Kohl's is a better option. And I'm going to swear, I can't effing get on board with that for the goddamn life of me. So, and please tell me why is that what people are saying? Okay. What is your point here? Why do you think this is a bad move by Amazon?
And if you mean by people, you mean me. So
no, Robin Lewis in his last article just said the exact same thing.
Okay.
One of my mentors, I disagree.
Well,
so why do you say that?
Okay. So first of all, let me clarify an important point of clarification. I'm not saying that they shouldn't buy JCPenney's and Kohl's and just do the whole thing. Like, fair it's point. Amazon. Let's just do it all. I mean, I'm not stopping that from happening. And it's Amazon, so they can do that. But my point was, Kohl's already has a relationship with Amazon. People have been going to that to return Amazon product there. So for returns, there's some, I'm not even done. I'm already getting, my God. It's not going to be a fair fight.
I'm being good.
So my point was that you also have Kohl's, who you said, Chris, in your latest Forbes article, are using the whole we're off mall, so that's going to be our strategy. Kohl's has, in many cases, independent boxes or boxes that aren't attached to retail locations, to mall locations. And the malls that JCPenney's are attached to have specific contracts that prevent them from becoming distribution centers. So if Amazon was able to secure those locations, they'd have a whole additional hurdle to get over to try to turn those JCPenney stores into something else. Now, would they turn them into these like mixed use, 80% distribution center, 20%, front of house shopping returns?
Like a Target that's shipping 80% of the orders from store. Yep.
That's possible. But I'm just saying that you already have Kohl's that's in a position where they could basically just be completely 100% flipped. And Amazon already has that relationship set up there. And Kohl's is going to face a similar fate. So
I think I want to hear what Carter and Emma think of this, but I think that's too simple. Basically and this is what Robin Lewis said too, that like Kohl's is better because of where the stores are located, and their apparel is better was the other thing that was mentioned in that article, which I can tell you're not super keen on. But Carter, Emma, anything here before I'm going to go on probably an all-time rant?
Yeah, I'm going to let you do your rant. I think the Kohl's argument of being off mall is interesting. I mean,
why?
Interesting
good or interesting like?
I mean, I don't know if you want to be attached to regional malls right now. Like, I don't know if that's the benefit. Now, whether that's a big enough deal to be the swing, probably not. But I have a hard time understanding what these malls are going to look like. And maybe that's a reason to get in on the cheap. But yeah, I don't know if you want to be attached right now.
Yeah. Emma, anything here?
The way I've been thinking about it, because I just don't know enough about distribution and real estate to really formulate an opinion. But I've kind of been thinking, so if Amazon takes these JCPenney locations, how do I want to shop at a mall? And what if Amazon just took over the whole mall, every store. They have
talking.
clothing, they have everything, scan and go technology. Like, that's how I want to shop going forward. Really no human contact, but like I would go to a mall if it was all Amazon, and like even if they have different brands. But I think like that could be the future of a mall.
Yeah, now we're talking. I'll give you the $20 later, even though I had no idea you were going to say that in all actuality. 100%. 100%. Let's think about what Amazon's been doing, right? They've been getting into grocery. They now have a 10,000 square foot grocery store that runs on Amazon Go technology. They're rumored to be opening one in LA. They did the GH Lab experiment, which was scan and go technology. They said they have Amazon Go. I love what Emma's saying here. There's some nice aspects to a JCPenney store. One, they're probably typically bigger and more multi-level than what you're going to find at a Kohl's.
I debate that, but keep going.
Come on. You know, and I mean, they're anchor spots on the mall, right? I mean, those, generally speaking, minimally, you could say they're generally probably, a lot of them are multi-level into some degrees, or some of them probably have that proclivity.
You're using multi-level as a benefit?
Yes, for fulfillment potentially, because you can separate and aggregate that concept out architecturally to do different things for you. And so when you start talking about then getting into what is the backbone architecturally of the mall, then you start to get into really cool things when you bring in what Germazian was talking about when we interviewed him, saying they become experience centers. So imagine them becoming more places for experience where the entire thing is running on the frictionless technology that is the Amazon platform. You could walk into one concept could be, and you could make this all the same, you can make it all different, but it really doesn't matter because you can do it in a lot of different ways. And it could be like a walkout technology in some, a scan and go technology in others. There might be a grocery store attached, but Amazon would have the ability to mold and shape this because they'd be the most important anchor tenant in that mall, pulling all the traffic in. Oh, and then by the way, the real estate argument of Kohl's being off price, I do go to that because, like, here's the thing. Malls are where they are because that's where people have centered and located themselves for years. That's how people get to them all most efficiently. That's a great place for Amazon to do this. Why would I go try and do this at Kohl's at a strip center where I'm surrounded by probably like the local whatever guy that's like selling God knows what? Like, it doesn't matter. There's so much more power and infrastructure Amazon could put into this for the long term. Oh, and last point, and you hit on this, and I 100% agree with you. It's freaking cheap. Like, who cares? Like, just buy it, and if it doesn't work, so what? The option value of what I'm talking about, if it works, is so huge and so big that it makes sense. Where Kohl's as the comparable, far, far more expensive to try to pull that off. And the apparel argument, don't even get me started. Kohl's just sells everything that everybody else does. It doesn't validate freaking Amazon on the apparel front better than anything else. And that's not why I'm guessing why Amazon would try and do something like this. All right. Any last words on that, Carter? I see you, and you got to have at least the rebuttal.
Okay. You also assume that you want to keep I think the thing that you're not counting in right now for JCPenney's in the mall's locations, you still have a lot of friction points with the other tenants in the malls, Chris, that are you have today? A lot of hurdles. Yes, today. We're talking right now though. So I can see your vision for JCPenney down the road, but I'm saying like in the next several years, there's still a pretty significant hurdle for them to get over for Amazon to take over the whole mall. You have, unless all those other things are going out of business. And you also have do you need the size of an entire giant mall? Do you need that? I don't know that you need to take up that much real estate. That's why, I mean, look at what we're seeing happen at the malls. They're turning into multi-unit housing developments and gyms and other things. So.
Yeah, but you can still do that. That doesn't change anything. And I know I was going to ask Carter that. Carter actually would probably love to live in an apartment complex run by Amazon and Alexa Voice. Carter probably shaking his head.
Yes, I'd love that.
100%, right? And I think this is why I love doing the show, because I think you just made it even clearer in my head, you know, why this makes a ton of sense. Because, and I lost my train of thought as it's coming out to me, but like Amazon can get in there and do all of that, because we've talked on past shows about, it's coming back to me now. We talked on past shows about what if a mall had a front face digitally? Oh, what does Amazon have? It has a marketplace. Why doesn't every retailer just plug into that if it wants to keep its existing mall operation open? Oh, what else can it do? Well, it can probably coordinate curbside pickup and fulfillment for you out of a localized warehouse in the mall, or maybe a nearby, distribution facility as well. all those things that we talked about in terms of economies of scale needing to be added to the mall, Amazon's built to do it already. Every single thing we've written and talked about, it's there.
This should be its own 30-minute segment in advance. There's so much to talk about here.
So much good stuff. And the numbers are jumping on LinkedIn as we do it, so I love it. But anyway, all right. And any last things to say?
I'll deal with you later.
All right, good. That was fun though.
We'll finish it up.
That was fun. You know who really liked that?
Oh, Tom brought up a really good point.
Oh, Tom.
So a lot of the conversation has been around Amazon buying AMC. What's another big mall tenant?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And now
so that's where I take my tinfoil hat and put it right on.
There's some great ones in here, Tom. I won't keep going. Amazon Annie's Pretzels is probably one of my favorites.
Amazon's Annie's Pretzels. Awesome. Well, that was fun. It was a blast. I just wanted to have a lot of fun today with that. It was cool. You know who really liked it too? Was Jeff and Terry.
You know what? Jeff and Terry look like they are prepped and ready for a Zoom call. And I think that I will just give a quick shout out for our live shopping event this afternoon for everyone and anyone who wants to get prepped for their Zoom call. We're going to do a tutorial. The last 3 things that you should do before you get on that Zoom call. So join us at 4 p.m. We'll also be live streaming that event today, 4 p.m.
Yeah, especially if you're listening to us live. Yeah, if you're listening to us in the podcast, and will we have that on will that be recorded too, so that our loyal OmniTalk fans can watch it back?
Well, we will have that on record, Chris. We will have it.
Thank you for that.
After that Amazon and JCP conversation, I will take any dig I can get.
Probably well deserved on my part. All right, well, that closes us up. One thing we do want to make sure that we make mention of is we want everyone to have a really awesome Memorial Day weekend. We hope everyone has a safe, fun-filled weekend. It's important to take a break. We've all been working really hard. It's just definitely been a period of time that's been hard on everyone psychologically too, I can imagine. So let's all take a break, get a little bit of respite, enjoy the time with our friends and families as much as possible, whether virtually or in person. As always, please remember to like, review, and subscribe to our podcasts on wherever you listen to our podcast, and of course to our video channel on YouTube. Thanks to our sponsors, Takeoff and Trigo. And finally, as always, be careful out there.